Welcome to Season 9, Episode 41 of the Ubuntu Podcast. It's Tuesday the 6th of December, and we're going to discuss what's been happening in the news and in the community. I'm Mark, and joining me this week are Martin.
Hello.
Alan.
Hello.
And Ubuntu Podcast community hero, Joe Ressington.
Hello.
Hi, Joe.
Is that his new title?
Well, you know, he has a habit of stepping into the breach to save us from disaster.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Excellent. So, Alan, what have you been up to since last we spoke?
I kind of got sick of waiting for my Mycroft, and I bought an Amazon Echo. I know, right?
Splitter.
Well, actually, good? An Echo Dot, and being able to say, Alexa, play some David Bowie, and it just plays it. And that's hooked up to a nice speaker and, you know, play some nice music is nice. But what I actually want to do is have it hooked up to some other funky things like turning the Christmas lights on and off. So this is a little project that I want to do over Christmas, is hooking my Amazon Echo Dot up to other things to amuse and entertain the children and be lazy.
Does Amazon let you do that?
Yep.
So for the uninitiated, this is something you can talk to and it does things. You know, what is it and how does it do things?
So it's about the size of a hockey puck if you're Canadian. If you're not Canadian, it's the size of a hockey puck. And
the size of about 5 beer mats stuck together.
I don't know what's kind of like super thick luxury beer mats you're using, but yeah, it's quite thick. But
it's quite thick.
The small one, yeah. Anyway, it plugs in over a USB like charger and has microphones and a little speaker on board, but you can also pair it via Bluetooth with a bigger speaker or have it plugged into a bigger speaker. I have it Bluetooth connected to a speaker. And it listens for a keyword, which is Alexa. So hopefully someone is playing this loudly and there is an Alexa in the room and it's just gone, what? And then you can give it commands, and there's a certain set that it supports, like setting the volume, playing music, playing radio stations, adding things to your shopping list, stuff like that. That's quite cool. But you can also add additional skills and hook it up to other stuff. So our friend Laura Tchaikovsky has it hooked up to her lighting system, so she can turn the lights on and off in any room in the house. Has it hooked up to the heating system, the TV, the shutters, the blinds in their bedroom, all kinds of stuff. And I saw this last week, so I was working at her house last week, as I sometimes do, and I thought, that's really cool. I want some of that. And it was on special offer on the special deal. So I thought,
Cyber Black Wednesday or whatever it is.
We don't talk about that, but yes, that. It was fun.
These skills, do you have to develop them yourselves, or are they pre-bundled in some form?
There are some that are other people have made, but others you can make yourself with hack together a bit of Python, that kind of stuff. Cool. I haven't actually done any of this yet, so that's what I'm aiming to do over the Christmas period. But my good friend and your boss, Will Cook, has done some of this, and he's shared some of what he's done with me. So I'm going to do similar kind of things to what he's done. Which
have you seen that? Have you seen that video where I think it's an Echo and some sort of Siri device where it's just an infinite loop?
Oh, the Google Now, yes.
Oh, is it Google Now? What's on my calendar?
Thing.
And yeah, that was quite amusing.
Yes, I look forward to being able to do. Actually, I was watching something on the TV, and someone said Alexa, and my Alexa woke up. So yeah, I'm not sure how you get around that, but yeah, when it wakes up, whenever you don't expect it to. Maybe I don't know if you can change the name of it or what, but yes, it's quite entertaining.
Joe, what have you been up to?
I have been driving to Winterfell and back. I had to go outside of Romania, all the way up north, and it was delightful up there. But
when you say up north, you mean Edgware?
Hi, Barnet.
Oh, right.
No, it was all the way up the M1 and then some. And when I got there, I realised I'd used an awful lot of data, and when I got back, I realised I'd used an awful lot more. And while I was away, I'd only sort of looked at a couple of YouTube videos, downloaded a couple of fairly small podcasts, and I'd used 2 gigabytes of data.
Yow.
Yeah, given that I have only got 4 gigabytes of data and I was only 3 days into the month, it was not ideal. And I think it was Google Maps, because I was just having Google Maps turn by turn all the way there and back.
Really?
That seems like a lot of data.
Yeah,
It does seem like a lot.
I've never had Google Maps use that much, and I mean, I use it a fair amount. I only have 1 gig a month. So I share my phone via hotspot to my son who plays Pokemon Go on his phone that doesn't have a SIM, and he had something going in the background like downloading apps and stuff. So I feel your pain because I ate through all of mine. Well, he ate through all of mine in like half a minute. So yeah.
Oh dear. Right. I think it's time to get on with the show.
And now it's time for the news. And first up in the news, our glorious leaders have enacted a new super contentious surveillance bill, which has become law, which is called the Investigatory Powers Act. It's been passed into law, brings in some of the most extreme and invasive surveillance powers ever given to spies in a democratic state, and makes us look a bit of a laughingstock and 1984 all over again. Well done, us.
You say brings in, I would say puts a legal framework around what they were already doing.
Yes, although not so much, because at least in the previous system, there was sort of a double lock warrant requirement to actually have a judge somewhere sign the warrant to enact these requests to snoop. But now most of the government organisations that have access to internet connection records only require somebody within the organisation of a sort of defined level to sign off on any requests.
And also previously they didn't require ISPs to store all of your internet access. Because we all know how good ISPs are at keeping customers' data safe.
Yeah, so just in the last 12 months, we've had breaches from TalkTalk, Vodafone, O2 and 3, all organisations that are going to be responsible for retaining this information now.
But don't worry, there's only a couple of organisations who can actually view your internet history, aren't there?
Yes,
just 49.
Let's look at some of those people who can look at. So some of them you might think, yeah, that makes sense, like Metropolitan Police and maybe Police Service of Scotland for residents of Scotland, Police Service of Northern Ireland, GCHQ. Yeah, these make sense. British Transport Police, I guess, if I'm on a train.
Welsh Ambulance Service.
Okay, if I'm in an ambulance in Wales and I make some, and I'm surfing the internet at home from an ambulance in Wales, yeah, maybe, yeah.
Food Standards
Agency, yeah.
Right, now it's getting a bit tenuous.
Competition and Markets Authority.
Gangmasters and Labour Abuse Authority. I had no idea that actually existed. No. So it's quite ludicrous, the number of people who potentially have access to what is effectively, the websites you visit on a daily basis if you're a UK resident and served by one of the main ISPs, which covers a significant percentage of the UK population.
And while ISPs are going to be collecting this information, the government also intends to create a centralised system to allow you to make queries across all of it. So eventually there will be a single point to request access to this information from all of these multitude of organisations. And as we've seen in other countries, whilst there are lots of respectable people working in all of these government organisations, there are always people who are not so scrupulous and will, go fishing for stuff just because they can.
It should be noted that there was an amendment to the bill passed, which does help safeguard some security because MPs decided that they shouldn't be subject to
that's good.
to this surveillance. So you're not allowed to request. These agencies aren't allowed to request records on MPs because we all know that MPs are always, under all circumstances, law-abiding citizens and are never doing anything online which might warrant investigation.
So now if their warrants to request information for MPs requires a sign-off from the Prime Minister, I believe now. So they're still having all of their data gathered, just like the rest of us. But
yes, because of course you couldn't, if you're gathering everything that goes through an ISP, you have to gather everything.
This is all just bloody awful. Who on earth thinks this is a good idea? I mean, really?
It's just horrific. It's embarrassing. I feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
Living in this
just
country.
compounds the embarrassment. I mean, I know. We've already had Brexit. I mean, come on.
I know.
I tell you who doesn't think this is a good idea, and that's the Open Rights Group, who you can join, and who are campaigning against this fervently.
And who I backed several campaigns that they ran earlier in the year to try and raise public awareness about all of this, which I have some token offerings on my desk. In fact, I've mentioned before, I have the Mona Lisa mouse mat on my desk in front of me right now as a result of this. So I have our glorious leader staring at me every day to remind me that everything I do is being observed.
Good Lord.
Yes. Well, it's a good reminder, actually.
Save us from this, Martin. Give us some good news.
Some good news. Well, the Pine 64 has launched the Pine Book, a low-cost Linux laptop.
What makes it low cost? Why is it low cost? What have they done? It's
low cost because they have embedded their Pine A64 single board computer effectively in a traditional PC laptop chassis.
So it's not a proper laptop then?
It's an ARM-based laptop. It's not an Intel x86-based laptop.
So it can't run Windows then?
No. But
let me just look around the room at all the ARM-based laptops I have.
Can it run Windows IoT Core or whatever it's called?
I have no idea. But last week we talked about the Next Dock, the chassis for the 14-inch model. So this is available in two sizes, 11-inch and 14-inch. And the 14-inch chassis is the exact same chassis as that Next Dock that I have.
Oh, so it just has one of their boards instead of whatever Bluetooth gubbins the Next Dock has.
And that same chassis is also available on AliExpress with a Centrino, board inside it as well. So there seems to be lots of spin-offs of that particular bit of kit. Yeah, but it's going to retail for $99 for the 14-inch model, which is going to be $20 cheaper than the Next Dock, but includes an SBC.
$20 cheaper, and it's a proper computer.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what you can do with that after the fact. And so, I've turned one of my Next Docks into one of these by embedding a Raspberry Pi Zero inside it. So nice. I've spent $99 on the chassis and then another $5 on a Pi Zero. So, it's cost me more already for a lower powered device. So this is kind of interesting. And it says it runs Ubuntu, but I'm not sure what Ubuntu exactly it's going to come with. So that's probably worth poking around and finding out. If anyone knows more about the Pine 64 and what versions of Ubuntu it runs, could you let us know?
And if it's not a proper Ubuntu, Mark, tell us what will happen.
Well, Mark Shuttleworth has announced that Canonical is launching a case against a cloud provider who has been using Ubuntu branding on unofficial images.
That's outrageous.
So they've basically been selling Ubuntu VPSs in the cloud, but they've been disabling fundamental security mechanisms, which essentially make it unsupportable by the Ubuntu community and Canonical. So this is basically the kind of thing that the Ubuntu trademark policy is supposed to stop. You can't modify Ubuntu, or you can't modify an Ubuntu image and call it Ubuntu unless it's actually Ubuntu.
It's interesting that this was posted on the Insights blog rather than Mark posting it on his own blog, which he usually does when he has an opinion. He usually puts it on markshuttleworth.com, but it's on insights.ubuntu.com.
This felt more like an announcement and a justification of something Canonical is doing rather than something he felt he needed to voice an opinion about.
And usually it's like press releases and developer articles and stuff like that. And look at this new thing. But this was interesting that it was. I mean, I know other people have speculated who it might be. I don't actually know who the cloud provider, the European cloud provider in inverted commas, that it might be. I don't know anything about the legal stuff that's going on, but I find it interesting that Mark feels the need to talk about this publicly, about the fact that, we try to protect the Ubuntu branding by kind of going after companies that say they're making Ubuntu or providing Ubuntu, and when in fact, it's technically not.
it's not so much the Ubuntu branding. Ubuntu is a trademark. And if you have a trademark, you have to be seen to be protecting your trademark. And if you don't, and somebody infringes, and then you try to assert your rights, you're less likely to be upheld in that because you haven't previously made efforts to protect your trademark.
Someone could dilute your trademark, yes.
Yes. So, there's some sort of necessity to do this if other
Right, but there isn't a necessity. There's a necessity to go after people and tell people you shouldn't be doing that. Let's have a legal agreement which says you can do something similar with, a different trademark, or you can do something different, or let's fix the problems that you have and make it properly Ubuntu. I can understand that, but there's no legal requirement for you to blog about it. On your website.
Other than the fact this has made it public now, this is now there as a record that anyone can go to of Canonical upholding their trademark.
And based on previous experience with stories like this, if they hadn't done it, then there'd have been some kind of blog post from the company involved, and then things would have got reported, and it would have ended up looking bad for Canonical.
It's straight from the horse's mouth, as it were. Sorry for calling you a horse, Mark.
And also to build on what Mark said, if you want to make a version of Ubuntu for your own use, you are still free to take it and modify it. There's no issue with that. And if you are inside an organization and you want to take Ubuntu and modify it for your internal purposes, you can also do that as well. And you can also distribute it so long as you don't claim that it is Ubuntu and you've made modifications that intrinsically mean it isn't Ubuntu. So if it doesn't run the things that Ubuntu advertises it can do, like Docker, for example, you can't call it Ubuntu. And I've done this in the past at other organizations, taking Ubuntu, customized it and adapted it, and then deployed it multiple times internally within an organization and even to customers. But it was never sold, in air quotes, to customers as Ubuntu.
Joe.
So the San Francisco transit system has been hacked, experienced a ransomware attack.
Oh dear.
So what looks like Russian hackers encrypted everything and put up a message on all the ticket kiosks saying, "You hacked, all data encrypted, contact for key," and then an email address. And they wanted $70,000 in Bitcoin to unencrypt all the data on them and get it working again.
That wording, it really sounds like a well-spoken, someone who went to a well-placed school trying to make something sound Russian. To me, it doesn't. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe not. But the fact that they got the ticket machines, not just like the back end system, like you can understand here, some idiot picking up a USB key on the floor and plugging it in, and a back end system being compromised. But the fact that even the machines that you would use to buy tickets, so compromises the entire system.
Now, it sounds as though it was a targeted attack, the way you're talking there. And in actual fact, it wasn't. It was a complete accident. So the hacker...
How do they know what happened?
Well, the hacker in question actually got hacked twice by two vigilantes trying to track down, because they've put their email address in that message that Joe read out at the end of that email. So two guys managed to get into the email account of the hacker. The first person did it because the hacker had used the password hints for password resets, and the guy was able to guess his password from the hints that were provided.
I've seen elite hacks.
I've seen people say, just put UUIDs in the thing where it asks you what was your favorite cat and stuff like that. I can understand that, but some random dude on the internet, like from Russia, who types poor English, how do you guess that guy's security question, where he was born and his mother's maiden name? Unless his questions were, where are you from? Who are you going to attack? And how much are you going to demand? And what is your email address? Yeah.
Once they'd compromised the account, they then started a dialogue with this guy, this hacker. And it turns out that the tool that they're using to do this is an automated bot, and it will just try and do this to every device it finds, and it just happened to stroll into these ticket machines. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's good fun. Have they cleaned the virus off yet?
Last I read, it was in progress. They were still they decided not to pay the ransom. They were going to just completely rebuild the tills at the ticket kiosks from scratch.
Machines, yeah.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. An Indiegogo has launched for the, in inverted commas, first true Linux x86 and x64 tablet. So apparently all of those Android tablets out there that run Linux, they don't count. None of them. They don't count. And they've asked in block capitals, are you a techno geek? And it's basically an x86 tablet, which is going to run like proper Linux, not this hooky Android thing that apparently is quite popular. And apparently it's going to run some German version of Linux called SUSE, something like that.
Which only Germans can use.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I'm afraid this Indiegogo is only available to German speakers in the land of Germany. So,
yeah.
But it's available for OpenSUSE this time round, isn't it? But hasn't the same organisation previously tried a crowdfunder with the same device running Ubuntu?
Yes, and they mentioned this actually in the crowdfunder and on their Facebook page that they weren't happy with the interaction they had with Canonical, and they weren't happy with the support they got from Canonical. Ooh. I saw a comment in there. Not entirely sure what they mean by that, but it seems they're getting a lot of support from the people who work at OpenSUSE. I've seen posts from the internet's Brian Lunduke and Richard Brown, both of whom work at SUSE, and are supporting this campaign. So good luck to them.
I'll tell you who they're not getting a lot of support for, and that's backers.
Yeah. So if you are a techno...
21.
Yeah.
And what does that amount to in terms of...
5% of funding was reached.
Oh, dear.
About $4,000 out of the 200,000.
It's almost like people who want a Linux tablet go to a shop and buy an Android tablet, isn't it?
Almost. But if you are a techno geek and you like OpenSUSE and you're looking for a tablet, then go to our show notes and you can back this project and make it happen. Next up, Telegram, the instant messaging service, is launching Telegraph, billed as a blogging platform for the impatient. And you can find out more at http://telegraph.ph. And it gives you a form where you can type in a title, a byline, and your post, and then it publishes it to a unique URL that you can then share on the socials and other things.
That's neat.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea.
There's no way of kind of proving who posted anything.
I think that's the point, isn't it? That's Telegram's shtick, isn't it?
Right.
I think that's quite a neat idea, and I like the idea of being able to just like bash some text into a box and press publish, and away it goes. Out. I'd like to see how long it survives.
Is this Tumblr 2.0?
Maybe. And finally, Joe, save us from this.
Want a Death Star? That'll be $7.7 octillion per day, is the headline. So that's 30 trillion times all the money on Earth.
What?
An octillion has 27 zeros, put it that way. So the Death Star in Star Wars...
the proper version, the 1977 version.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Death Star 1.
Well, the British
is that the
energy
one with
supplier.
William Shatner or the other one?
Yeah, my favourite character is Dr. Spock.
Jean-Claude Van Picard, or whatever his name is.
Right.
Anyway, British energy supplier OVO Energy put this together. They did a kind of estimate of how much power it would need, and it is a ridiculous amount, mostly for the planet-smashing laser that would take more energy than the sun puts out to recharge in a day.
Wow.
Yep. So they've made a really nice infographic on this. You can find a link to that in the show notes. And I think this is a really neat bit of viral marketing that they've come up with here. Yeah. I particularly like their stats on what the energy costs would be for feeding the 2 million workers, which includes 2 cups of tea a day because OVO is a British company.
Excellent. Do you think there'll be a Kickstarter for this?
Well, it's not going to complete in 30 days, is it?
And I think that's all of the news.
And now we have a roundup of the community news and events. And first up, Sujiveen, who was the organizer of UbuCon Europe, has posted his retrospective of the event. And also the Ubuntu community team have also posted their write-up of the event as well. And we'll have links to both of those articles in the show notes.
Yeah, that was good. That was a great event. I really enjoyed that.
I can't wait for the next one. Yeah.
Yes. We had a call today about the next UbuCon, which is going to be at scale in the US next year. So we're starting to prep the next.
Scale's
UbuCon.
a bit later than usual this year. Not next year, isn't it? It's like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But also there's an UbuCon Europe in Paris, which we'll probably talk about nearer the time.
Yeah.
Next up, the Ubuntu SDK meets Snapcraft. So there's a nice blog post detailing how you can use the Ubuntu SDK to build applications. And it now has support for Snapcraft, so you can turn your cute QML application or C++ or HTML5 or whatever into a snap and shove it into the store very easily straight from the SDK.
Cool. Next up, Alan Griffiths from Canonical has written about how Mir can be used separately from Unity 8. So he's written about a couple of tools called Miral client and Miral shell and Miral server, which are like a minimal Mir window manager and so on for running Mir apps without the whole Unity 8 bonanza around it.
Yep.
I've never heard Unity 8 called a bonanza. Alan gave a demo of this at a recent sprint that Martin and I were at in The Hague. And it's pretty cool. It's nice to be able to learn a bit more about what Mir is and what it isn't and how you can use it. So that's cool.
I've been working on a little Raspberry Pi project using Mir. So I've talked about my photo display that I've made for the Pi. I'm making a very simple digital signage application which talks directly to Mir so that this can be the thing that displays the photos and videos and what have you on the rotating screen.
When you say digital signage, I'm thinking of your home photos up on a 20-foot thing on the side of your house.
Yeah, 20-foot or maybe just 7-inch screen.
Okay.
Small sign.
So Dev1 is 2 years old. This is the Systemd free fork of Debian. And in that 2 years, it's managed to release 2 betas. So it's not the most active of projects, I think it's fair to say.
Wow. I'm surprised it still exists.
Yeah, it was a project that got a lot of news around the time when the Systemd wars were, raging. And it seemed to go quite quiet quite quickly, didn't it? But they gathered an awful lot of community funding to support this project, which they're still posting annual statements of the money coming into the project and what have you. So I don't know. Is there a need for this? I mean, maybe the people that are supporting it think that there is, but I think the world's moved on, hasn't it?
Yep.
You need init freedom.
Well, okay. So next up, Ubuntu is preparing for its hardware enablement kernels for the upcoming 16.04.2 release and subsequent releases after.
How is this different from previous LTSs? We do hardware enablement, but it says rolling hardware enablement.
Yeah, rolling hardware enablement.
How's that different?
In the past, for the interim release, that would be used as a basis to create a hardware enablement stack for the a matching point release of the LTS. So, for example, in 16.04.2, it will use the hardware enablement stack from, where are we now? Yakety from 16.10. And on 16.03, it will take the hardware enablement stack from 17.04 even. Now, in previous years, there was a hardware enablement stack made for each interim release. But now what's going to happen is the hardware enablement stack will be made for 16.04.2, and then it will roll with each of those interim hardware stacks automatically for the desktop if you've installed 16.04.2 or you've opted in.
I don't understand.
Okay.
So I just install this once and then I'm rolling forwards. I don't have to I don't have to jump to 1604.2 hardware enablement stack and then 1604.3. I just install it once and then I get new crack when it arrives, basically.
Exactly
Sweet.
how it works. All the way up to the final hardware enablement stack, which will be the same as 1804 by that time.
Wow.
And if you really want to sit on the bleeding edge, there's also a new bleeding edge hardware enablement stack that will track whatever the in development hardware enablement stack is for that given period. And the reason for doing this is to minimize the support effort, because they were maintaining between 4 and 5 different hardware enablement stacks at a time. And now they will only ever have 2 on the go, a maximum of 2 on the go.
So yes, this is super useful for people who like buy a brand new laptop this year or next year.
Yeah.
That has like the latest Intel CPU or the latest AMD APU, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And for customers using the live patch service, it's important to point out that only what's called the GA kernel, so the kernel that is effectively the one that ships on 1604 LTS and 1604.1, those are the only ones that are going to be supported by the live patch service, so not the hardware enablement versions.
Golly gosh, wow. Moving on, Colin King, renowned along the same lines of the kernel stuff, works on the kernel team and has announced that StressNG 0.07.07, is that right? Mm-hmm. Has been released. Awesome version number there, Colin. Well done. And StressNG is a nice little tool that allows you to stress test CPUs and memory. So you can run it in order to do a few benchmarking and performance tools, but also it's a good way to, just like stress the hardware inside your computer. And it's also available as a snap if you really want that.
Next up, Timo Aaltonen has written about Mesa 12.0.4 backport available for testing. And this is software accelerated OpenGL rendering, am I right? Something
and
like that.
Also hooks into hardware renderers as well, doesn't it?
Oh, does it? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
This is if you don't want proprietary drivers, but you do want decent graphics. So this should give Radeon users about a 15% performance boost in certain games with complex shaders.
Can't think about Mesa without thinking of Jar Jar Binks, to be honest. Always.
See, I just think of Half-Life 2.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Or indeed Half-Life 1.
Do email us and let us know what Mesa makes you think of.
Makes me think of Mr. Boogie amplifiers.
Oh, there's that as well, yeah. Yeah.
Makes me think of Sun Microsystems.
See, it's multi-purpose.
So 10 desktop snaps that were written in November. This is a post on insights.ubuntu.com, and it's a sort of selection of 10 desktop applications that are available as snaps now, including HexChat, which is the only one I'd heard of, I must admit.
Yeah, same here.
There's a
next
snap
up, if you're looking for some snaps to try out, there's a list of 10 for you to go and acquaint yourself with there. Triskel GNU Linux 8.0 Alpha is now available to download.
Yeah, why have you got this one to read out, Martin, I wonder?
It's just the way it worked out, Joe. It's got nothing to do with the fact that Triskel 8 is now based on Ubuntu 16.04 and the glorious Mate Desktop 1.112.
So is it based on Ubuntu Mate, or is it just based on Ubuntu and then they've done their own Mate thing on top?
They're using Mate from the official repository, so they're using the version of Mate that I, helped make and package and what have you. They're obviously using most of the Ubuntu base, but they have their own kernel that they use. I think it's called Libre kernel or something like that.
For those unfamiliar, remind everyone what Triskel is in the size of a tweet.
Triskel Linux is an operating system that doesn't include any proprietary software or blobs.
Right. So everything is free Libre software, which is why they have that Libre kernel.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so normally in the kernel, there's like bits of what appears to be source code, but is actually just compiled code included as a big lump.
Yep.
And this doesn't have any of that. So some hardware doesn't work.
Although Triskel isn't really a kind of ideal day-to-day operating system to run, Linux distro to run. It is a very useful way. I know that's controversial, but it's a very useful...
Send your feedback to Joe at Joe Ress.
Yeah. But it is a very useful way. It's a useful tool, I suppose, to look at what proprietary software your hardware is running. So if you run Triskel and your Wi-Fi doesn't work, or your Bluetooth doesn't work, or your graphics doesn't work, it means it's running proprietary software.
So this is better than running VRMS on a normal install. This is like real world. Oh, my keyboard doesn't work. Therefore, it probably needs proprietary software.
VRMS gets very shouty on modern Linux distributions these days. Maybe we should do a command line love on that at some point for those who don't know what VRMS is.
I think we've done VRMS in a previous command line love many, many years ago.
More than likely.
Moving on, Harold Sitter from the KDE project has written a blog post about snapping KDE applications and his experience of doing that, which was rather good of him to do.
Yes, it's an excellent read as well, and can be used as a more detailed document to sit alongside the presentation that he gave at the Ubuntu Online Summit a few weeks ago about how they're using content sharing to shrink the size of their KDE application snaps.
I think that was one of their big worries, was that early on when snaps were first created, it was like throw everything inside the snap and then publish that, and people kind of balked at the idea of, well, why is this thing so huge? Why have I got all these additional libraries inside my snap? And so the Snappy developers listened and they modified things and they changed things, and now you can separate out some of the libraries, for example, that you use a lot. And he talks about the fact that there's a whole bunch of KDE libraries that are used across a bunch of applications, so it makes sense for them to split them off into a separate snap. It's all rather good, and it's rather nice to see a nice positive blog post from the KDE upstream.
Cool. And we have some events for you. What's up first, Martin?
First up, we have Bad Hack, which is the Basingstoke and Dean Makerspace on the 13th of December 2016 in Basingstoke, England. Well, it's actually in Chinham, but Basingstoke. So Basingstoke and Dean Makerspace is brand new.
Provincial.
Yes. It's a brand new group. They're looking to find like-minded people in the Basingstoke area to form a new community and find a space in which we can meet and collaborate. I went along to their first meeting, so and I'll be going to their subsequent meetings as well. They're every other Tuesday starting the 13th of December. Please come along if you're in the area.
Also, on Sunday the 11th of December is the second Horsham Raspberry Jam in Horsham, England. Come along, have fun, learn about using Raspberry Pi, Arduinos, robotics, coding and electronics. Many interactive projects will be on show. Thanks to Gavin Hewins from Hack Horsham for emailing us about that event.
And linuxconf.au 2017 is going to be...
You're not going to do the accent then?
But no. I
thought not. He was. Oh.
Sounds as good as mine.
Crikey. The 16th to the 20th of January 2017 in Hobart in Tasmania, the island of Tasmania in Australia. And it sounds a little bit odd campy, but more kind of specific to Linux and all kind of aspects of the ecosystem and free and open source software. So if you're in Australia, it sounds like the place to go.
It's massive. There's a lot of people who go to that. Speaking of massive, Mark.
FOSDEM 2017 is on the 4th to 5th of February 2017 in Brussels in Belgium, and it's a free event for software developers to meet, share ideas and collaborate.
And that's the end of the news and events.
We love getting your feedback, so please send it to us. Even the pointlessly mean stuff makes us laugh. If it's short, tweet us on @Ubuntu Podcast. If it's less short, but please no essays, email us on show@ubuntupodcast.org. If you'd like to discuss some of the things we talk about with other listeners, post on our shiny new subreddit at reddit.com/r/Ubuntu Podcast. Or you can just leave a comment on the relevant show notes on our website, ubuntupodcast.org.
And that's all.
Sorry,
episode 41.
First time I've heard Laura's voice for a long time.
We'll be back next week when we'll be interviewing Ralph Ham from labdo.org and we'll bring you some command line love.
Don't miss that interview. He is an awesome guy. It was amazing to talk to him, and you should listen to that.
Okay. I will.
Thank you, Joe, for joining us for this. Are you going to come back next week?
I'll see what I can do.
You're not busy
That
then.
joke never gets old.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Alexa, please tweet ubuntupodcast.org is great.